Music is sound. And in order to understand music, we need first to understand sound. And we happen to be immersed in a sea of sound. All kinds of sounds are around us. And these basically are vibrations. Now, let me demonstrate a vibration in a simple, straightforward way. I have a drum here, which is the dagga of the pair of instruments, percussion instruments called tabla. So, when I strike, this membrane vibrates. It is first depressed, it seeks to restore its original shape, and in so doing, it goes past the middle mark and then it is pulled back again. And in this fashion, it moves about a center. And these are the vibrations that leave this membrane and reach our ears. Now, this is, of course, a membrane, but something as solid as this also vibrates, but we cannot see it. Let's see. It is the vibration caused by my striking this mortar and pestle that causes air to move, and these arrive at my eardrums. My ears hear, my brain interprets based on past experiences and memory. And we are able to discriminate between sounds that are surrounding us. Of course, we have people's voices, we have the sounds of animals, other life forms, sounds of technology, sounds of culture such as music, dance, and sounds that the earth makes all the time. Blowing wind, falling rain, and a shaking earth somewhere, falling leaves. And these are all the sounds that the earth makes. And what we have here is that individually, although there are certain sounds that we respond to almost like a collective, a very loud sound, for example, which is strange in that particular context, we all listen to, we all pay attention to. But loud sounds in themselves may not make salience for individuals. If I happen to be staying close to a hospital, I get used to the sound of sirens that ambulances beep through the night, for example. If, of course, there is an emergency. If I happen to be staying near an airport, the takeoff and landing of approaching and departing aircraft cause a lot of noise. But I get habituated, I get used to it. But a guest who will spend one night at my place will not be able to sleep that night. So sounds in general have particular saliences for each of us. If there is a tap that is dripping, we might be able to hear it and be even irritated by the annoyance it causes. But there might be a loud sound that may simply be ignored by us. So it's not necessarily the intensity, the loudness, or the pitch of the sound, but it is what kind of importance that sound has individually for each of us. It's pretty much the same when we view something. There's a landscape and there are 3 of us, 4 of us. Individually, we might be paying attention to different prominences in that landscape. That's exactly what happens when we hear sound. And now we have people's voices, which I mentioned earlier. These are sounds which are called anthrophony, cultural sounds such as that of music and song, anthrophony. The sounds made by gadgets, anthrophony, all that we make as with utterances, which are like speech, as well as utterances which are instinctive, such as exclamation, joy and anger and the like. These are all together they form what we call as anthrophony. Anthro for human, man initially. And then you have biophony, which is sounds made by animals, all kinds of animals, those with a voice. For example, mammals have a vocal tract. They produce utterances like us, emotional utterances. And there are sounds which are produced, for example, by frogs, which have a throat, all right, but they radiate from their stomach, a bloated part of the lower part of the neck. So it's actually vibration of the skin which conveys the sound to us. And then there are crickets which produce sound by scraping on their hard skins, coverings. Okay, so there are different sounds produced by the animal world. Whale, they sing, whales, birds sing. So this is biophony. And then we have sounds made by the earth. As I said, a thunder that's rumbling in the distance, the passage of wind through leaves, and the patter of rain. These are all sounds that are made by the earth, and this we call as geophony. Now, what is important is that we are able to distinguish these sounds because of our individual experiences, individual memory. And sound and the way we orientate towards sound itself is something that is given to us to enhance our individual life experiences. And by paying closer attention to sound, we understand more about the world. So let's start, for example, to listen to this particular clip which I shall be playing for you, and pay as much attention as possible to the layers of sounds that one might be able to hear. But how much of it are we able to discern is something entirely left to each of us. What we heard just now is a clip that may have been recorded in a wooded area or in a forest, not completely isolated from a human settlement. But if we pay close attention, we hear several birds. And we also can gauge from the nature of the sound what kind of a bird this may be, and whether it is somewhere close to us, in the vicinity, or Is the sound coming in from somewhere far off? Are there other sounds in the background? Some kind of a sound that seems to be present throughout. Is there any sound that is of human origin? Or all these sounds completely those of birds? Are there different kinds of birds? And so on. I mean, the kind of information one is able to get from paying close attention to this clip is what we actually can, by paying attention to our immediate soundscape. If we want to make sense out of our soundscape, which means it is giving us an idea of how this world, this society is functioning. So it's not only something physical, not only something cultural, but very much also there is an undercurrent of the political way in which life expresses itself, the politics of life itself. So there is something to be discerned about how people organize their lives, which we will be discussing in a later episode. Now, let's listen to another clip, and this is inside a human settlement. And pay attention to what these sounds are, the nature of the sound, the nature of the background sound, what comes through saliently. Is there something that you can make sense of? Is there a conversation that is recognizable? Can you understand that conversation? What is the tonality of that conversation? Is it flat? Does it go up and come down? So these are some of the things that we can glean from any soundscape. For example, high pitch, low pitch, loud sounds, not so loud sounds, and many sounds mingling in such a way that you're not able to discriminate the source of each of those sounds. But in and through all this, you might be able to hear something sharp and recognizable. So let's listen to this clip.
120.
120, okay. And carrots?
How much? 320.
320, okay.
So what we heard just now are the sounds that are produced in a marketplace, in a typical place where people hawk their produce and seek attention from potential customers. So you have a background sound, which is what you would call a din, and then through that you can hear a conversation which is about a customer wanting to buy and not knowing what the produce is all about, and engaging in a conversation with the seller. So it's possible for us to know something about how a particular social setting functions by paying close attention. Now let's listen to another clip. Of course, this particular clip, the sounds were sort of even. There's nothing very exciting, and there's nothing that could be exciting for us in general. But it's the mundane, the day-to-day life of an aspect of each of us. The way people live in every society, or let's say it's a particular society. But let's listen to perhaps more exciting sounds in the next clip. when we pay attention to the sounds, we move from the overall tonality. For example, in a context like the market, children, you have a higher soundscape. And there could be other contexts in which the sounds produced, the voices that are produced, are trying to address us. These are not sounds that address us in any particular way. They are out there. In these various samples of sound, there are sounds that engage our curiosity, some exotic sounds, but there are very few sounds that grasp us in our entirety. We're not really completely, taken up with what is being said. We're not paying 100% attention. Now, let us listen to this clip, which is the voice of someone that a lot of people knew about. He's no more with us, but he, in his lifetime, had a great deal of influence over millions of people. So let's listen to him and then look at the nature of this sound.
Kindly give a straight reply. Does God exist or not? Yes or no? If yes, how best to realize Him in this life? It's a lovely question, isn't it? Kindly give a straight reply. Does God exist or not? Yes or no?
Now that was a very curious way of attracting our attention, raising question about, is there a God? But the somewhat high-pitched tone of this gentleman has a very interesting rising and then falling. It has a way in which those pauses actually make us think about what it is that he is wanting us to think. And this is the beginning of what you call as heightened speech, and also the beginning of the kind of regularity that is an important part of all musicality. So we can look at this as a precursor of music, speech, heightened speech, music. So let's listen to more samples of sound that will take us further into the domain of music itself.
Hom akteki oksiktana, kochitana, aktiktana.
That was a lullaby sung by a Zuni woman, a Native American resident. And this is sung, uttered in a manner as to create a bond with the addressee of this lullaby, which is an infant. One can imagine a woman and an infant, and that it's a very personal and personalized communication that the woman is seeking to make with the infant. And in this process, creating a new member of the human species. Now let's listen to another sample. So in this previous sample that we have just heard, there's a certain regularity, an unmeasured rhythm coming into the utterance. So sounds are getting more and more organized, but there's still not a division of time in such a way that there is a repeating pattern. So this is a lullaby, and like heightened speech, a lullaby could also be looked at as a precursor or music in itself, but one form of music. But what we will be now listening to would give us the more what you would call as quintessential forms of music, where there is a meter and there's a repetition, and there are pitches organized in particular ways. So let's listen to this clip. So that gives us an idea of how time is divided in a particular way, in particular ways. I mean, this is one sample, one example, but time is divided in such a way that it makes for a repetition of phrases, smaller segments of sound that repeat in time. Now, we can also pay attention to the way in which the pitches are organized, higher, lower, and typically a musical system is defined by the distance between intervals between pitches. Of course, usually there are 7 pitches in a typical classical setup, but there could be fewer pitches, and they could be singing in octaves, such as when a young boy sings with an adult male, there's already 1 octave difference in the pitches that they sing normally. But these are some of the intricacies we will be talking about in later episodes. But it's important for us to recognize that the intervallic distances, they are what sound to us as being part of a particular musical culture. Then, of course, we have seen that there is a meter, and the way in which meter itself is organized, it can be layered in a very complicated way, in a complex way, and that forms the overall rhythm. And of course, you can have layers and layers of rhythm, as in African musical system, where you have polyrhythms, which we'll be discussing in a later episode. Now, what we have seen so far is that from random sounds to sounds that make sense to us, make us feel then you have seen how speech and voicing gets organized in different ways in different contexts. And when it comes to a particular way in which the speech, let's say it has a rhetorical intention, when the speaker would like to create certain feelings in you, would like you to behave in particular ways, then the sound begins to get organized. But this is of course the organizational part, but the actual creation of the music itself is started with a collective, and music is always associated with collective activity. It has different functions, from being part of a ritual, supporting a ritual, or being a ritual itself, to helping bond mother and infant, helping in contexts of work, and helping to rouse emotions before a battle, and providing identities, national anthems, anthems of different kind. These are all the functions, some basic functions of music. Of course, we know the function of classical music, which is, to give us the feeling of what humans can actually achieve when you pay attention to sound. So let's listen to some more of these clips, and then we come to a close of this video.
पदं देवीं वाचम् अजनयन्ता देवाः तां विश्वरूपाः पशवः वदन्ति सा नः।
Es imposible dejar de quererte, es imposible dejar de amarte. Este cariño que yo a ti te tengo es un cariño puro y verdadero. Palpita.
So we have had occasion to see and take part in the journey of how sound moves from randomness to being more and more organized, from the rumble of thunder to rhythms of Caribbean music, from the symphonic elegance of Bach to the melodic intrigues of Hindustani classical music, and from the tweaking of the vocal apparatus to produce those multiple pitches simultaneously in two-hour singing, to the clashing sounds, the clashing timbres of the gamelan. This is hopefully the preparation of a ground to get deeper into what music is all about: pitch, tempo, space, and time. And all this happens within the cultural ambit of societies, and how societies interact, the passage of history, how musics persist as fossils in what we hear today. These are some of the questions that we will be asking and trying to answer in future episodes. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.